Hi everyone, welcome to my review of No Time to Die from 2021, directed by Cary Fukunaga, and of course the 25th James Bond film in the franchise, the final Daniel Craig outing. So yes, we are finally here to review this film. I did a few years ago, all the way back at the end of 2021, done my initial thoughts, which was quite lengthy, going over the film. This will not be as long as that, and this is, it could be similar stuff I'm saying, because I've not really changed my mind, I must say, about this film. Really, I don't really do that anyway. There's some films, but yes, it will just be more of a to the point, what I think of, various different aspects of the film, and not necessarily focusing on a few things that I did in that review or that video. But yes, with all that said, a spoiler warning for this discussion. If you haven't seen this film, I simply recommend seeing it and then come back to this video here, and we can go from there. And yes, I look forward to discussing this film and different Bond films as well. Still, as of recording this, obviously, we haven't really got any news really on the next Bond film, so it's still this kind of period of waiting. And I thought it's been an interesting journey. We'll say that now with this film that I've had. So that's why it's taken so long, and due to the fact that there's nothing really coming out in regards to Bond, I thought, what's the rush, kind of thing. And it's a film that it's very, very frustrating in places for me, this film. But I'll do my best to kind of give this a general discussion. Hopefully, yeah, it won't be as long as my previous video, but I have some things to say about the film. We'll go over all the different acts of the film, and my thoughts on this. And again, simply my opinion. A massive Bond fan, and this will. I saw it quite a few months ago now. Again, finally rewatching it on 4K behind me, and that's the only other time that I've seen it other than in the cinema. And we'll go back to the cinema. It'll be interesting to kind of talk about that, and 2 years ago now, just over that, and I must say, I've never really been more, I've not yet been more disappointed in an ending to a Bond film, and to any film actually. This is, I think, I could probably say that this is going to be the most angry, frustrated, really annoyed at an ending that I think I'll ever see coming out of the cinema, because I really did not like this ending, and everything about this, the final sort of 30 minutes really of this, 25 minutes, just did not sit well with me, and I just the ending itself, as we know, spoiler discussion, Bond dying, and all this, and MI6, the team discussing this and every single thing about it, and then kind of the last lines of the film, and the use of music as well from On Her Majesty's Secret Service. Everything about that whole ending, I really, really hated personally. It was just a complete, it just did not work whatsoever, and I've never been more crushed coming out of the cinema, in my life, and really for a franchise that I care about this much, to see an ending like that, I just, you can talk about Star Wars, different Star Wars films and different franchises, but I think this is the one that because I had such a, I did have high hopes originally for this film, and also just, it's Bond, and there's certain things, in the Bond franchise that I never want to see, and Bond dying, it's one of them, and certainly to go even further, the way it was done and the way it was just kind of, it was so, I didn't find it to be sincere or logical at all. Either, that's a Bond fan, yes, I don't really care about the logic too much in the Bond films, but wow, cinematic logic, and just as a franchise, why, I'll still, I'll never get over this, ending, and it really annoyed me, and it's just, it's so unenjoyable as well, that last 25 minutes, really, it's just scene after scene of just, this isn't working, the tone is all off, it's just forced, this has to happen, kind of thing, and then it does, and they keep going, and just then the final bits, it doesn't feel like a Bond film that to me whatsoever. It just feels like random stock scenes that have been put into a Bond film because a certain event had to happen. I think, the way this is kind of structured, it's very much mix and match, and just for me, it doesn't. I definitely feel that at times, it's kind of jarring. Some things don't flow together; they don't mesh. It's certainly not perfectly. At times, there is a really nice flow to the film, which we'll get to in the Cuba sequences, especially in generally the first half. It's a lot better than the second half, and that's when it really starts to go downhill. And some things that I wasn't big on, in the first half, they kind of come full circle in the second half, and then go even further, and it's just generally a lot more unpleasant. A lot more a bit sluggish. It's, obviously, this being 163 minutes long for a Bond film, obviously the longest. By quite a bit, nothing wrong with that. I love, obviously, I always say that, I don't need to keep explaining myself, but yes, I love epics and all this, but I think, this film did not need to be that long, and it does in places, because it's not, for me, all that, mind-blowing in the first place. It does, drag quite a bit in the second half, but yes, generally, the film, I think, I will say it's a good film. I have, quite a lot of things to praise about this film, and there's some things that I really, really hate, and things that are just fine and good enough, I guess. I say I always like to see, ideally, a very good Bond film. That's what I'll always be really happy with, coming out of a Bond film, realistically, as well as, just as a Bond fan, what I expect of the franchise. If we can get a great Bond film in there, obviously that's great, but a very good film is enough for me. This falls short of that, I think because of the build-up as well, it's just even more crushing, being 6 years in between this and Spectre, obviously, and who knows, it could be even longer, or it could be around the same until the next Bond film, which is very, very sad, but regardless, it was a long, long wait. Delays, of course, which I'm not, against, because obviously, the situations at the time. But I was very much hyped, and very disappointed. I'm not going to get into the plot too heavily, of course, but yes, the basic plot follows Bond being called into the service once again after having this time in Jamaica. Obviously, the main bulk of the film starts off with him in Jamaica, kind of, just enjoying himself, being at peace, and we have him, having left the service, and then Felix is the main one originally who comes to Bond with this mission, and essentially the villain of the film being Safin, who attempts to deploy this nanobot biological weapon technology, which can target DNA specifically, and essentially his plan obviously is to wipe out the entire human race and all this. So yes, we have that, but what we have first is in the pre-title sequence. We'll get to that now. This, it's definitely an attempt to be a very epic Bond film. With a scope and kind of tying different things together, but also in itself being one that covers time, different time periods all in one. So it's very interesting. We have Madeline, Madeline as a kid, and then in the same pre-title sequence we have a jump to her and Bond actually together, and then obviously after that it's 5 years on, kind of thing. So it's very strange. First of all, seeing the pre-title sequence, I did, for the most part, both times I've watched this, enjoy this quite a bit. It's really good overall in the action. The story stuff, what they're doing, for example, Vesper, the grave, the interaction there, big no for me, did not work, shouldn't have been in the film. If I was, just my opinion, it didn't work at all. It was really insincere, and it took me out of the film, and I really didn't, Spectre has this, I do love that film. I think it's a great Bond film, personally. Not one of my absolute favourites, but I do love that one personally. And then, though we do have some flaws with that, I have with Spectre, where we have attempts to create this mini universe with the Daniel Craig Bond films, and I don't really think that ever needs to be done. Bond is always, it's great to be loosely tied together. It's kind of wacky, fantastical universe where you can get immersed in continuity at times and all this, but mainly every Bond film, you know, is kind of standalone, and I think this one and Spectre, you know, have that issue, especially this one, where they don't really act as that, and they're really attempting to apply logic and all this, where it can't be applied, and for me, it personally shouldn't be. You know, it comes across very strange in this one with the Spectre. You know, the ties to Spectre, and also what they're doing with Vesper again and all this. But all that aside, you know, I do enjoy seeing Madeline and Bond together. You know, after that kind of, you know, that jump. But you know, the first bit when we see Safin being introduced, when Madeline is a kid, you know, and of course, you know, her mother being killed by Safin himself. Then we have the ice moment, which was, for me, very, very strange, quite confusing. But you know, it was fine. And then we have, yeah, Safin saving Madeline. Then we obviously, that's when we cut ahead to, you know, Madeline and Bond being together in that pre-title sequence. All this still, yeah, in the pre-titles, and then, you know, all of the action with the car, I must say I do really like, and the motorbike, you know, across the bridge and jumping with the rope and all this. A lot of that was in the trailer or hinted at. You know, it was definitely one of the best set pieces in the film, if not actually the most thrilling action in the entire film. We have the Cuba bit, which we'll get to, but in terms of, you know, cars, you know, vehicles and all this, definitely the best part of the film in that sense. And yeah, we have different things being set up, I guess. Quite disturbing at times atmosphere, I'll give it that, you know, in that pre-title sequence. Some things, you know, a bit laughable. Safin, generally for me, is one of the very, very worst Bond villains. He's right up there for me, you know, top 2 or 3, really. There's just, you know, Die Another Day, you know, maybe another one as well in there, but generally I think Safin is just so unenjoyable to watch personally for me as a viewer. It just really does not work. And Rami Malek is a great actor, you know, definitely really great actor, but just this character is just so, you know, I just can't get, you know, have this even surface level enjoyment, you know, being, you know, a love to hate for a villain. I just really just quite annoying, this one. With the, you know, with the mask and everything at first, it was kind of intriguing for me, first time viewing, but then the rest of the film really, it just doesn't, it never comes about, and it just, yeah, it didn't mesh with, you know, Bond either, and interactions and all this. Just so yeah, it was interesting at first in the setup, but really, the villains in this film, including Blofeld, do not work for me. And yes, I think though, when we lead into the from the pre-titles into the title sequence, especially the first time viewing that, you know, I was very intrigued. What were they trying to say? I thought I think I had it straight away, really, after thinking on it. You know, what they were hinting at. But Madeline is pregnant. You know, and she held her stomach and all this, and the way she looked, Bond. So it gives you a lot of things to think about, you know, I guess, you know, as a viewer. And then the actual title sequence, very quickly, not a fan of the design personally, and certainly not a fan of the song personally. But yes, then we have, obviously, yes, 5 years on, and Bond is in Jamaica, as I say. He's kind of relaxing, you know, he's left the service, and you know, it's great to see, you know, Bond doing. I think it's one of my favourite, you know, kind of segments of the film. It's just Bond going about. You know, it's not this kind of thing where we're seeing unnecessary details about Bond's life, which, you know, I think, for example, what I think about Bond, you know, having a family and, you know, having a kid, as we know in this film and all that. Again, that's not something I'm big on for a Bond film. It could be done well, but stuff like that, you know, with Bond's actual personal life, I don't need to see. But seeing him just going about, you know, kind of, you could say just relaxing, that's always great to see. You know, done that. You know, I think they've done that. A lot of the, you know, Connery films, you know, as well, and different ones like that. It was great to see, you know, just kind of nice, you know, easygoing moments to break up, you know, the action and all this. But yes, that's great. And then of course Naomie, played by Lashana Lynch, really well in this film, comes into the film, and so do different characters. Anna de Armas as well, you know, playing a character in this film, which I really, really like. You know, in fact, you know, Anna de Armas, you know, is actually my favourite kind of newcomer in this film, and you know, it's just I love you know, her character, and just really interesting interactions, and the chemistry between her and Bond as well. You know, it's just great. You know, just yeah, really warm interactions. But yes, we have loads of different characters gradually coming into this sequence, and you know, leading into the Cuba sequence, which for me is the highlights of the film in terms of action, in terms of just the style. You know, the Bond feeling. It's definitely there. You know, in some ways in that sequence. I wouldn't really say that in the second half too much, but the action here is very, very good for the most part. You know, Lashana Lynch. You've got, of course, Anna de Armas. You've got as well. You know, I do enjoy seeing, you know, Felix back again. Obviously, Jeffrey Wright. You know, it's just he plays. You know, especially in Casino Royale. You know, probably my favourite Felix really, and you know, it's great to see him. He does, of course, as we know, get, you know, killed off in this one. It seems like everyone is getting you know, killed off, which, you know, I understand. You know, again, they're trying to kind of make this the end of the Daniel Craig ones, so that's what they were doing. But really, afterwards, it certainly has no effect. You know, just it's just kind of that's why I kind of thought, why what is this having an effect on me? You know, in this film as well. You know, am I really getting emotional from this? Yes, in the sense that, you know, the acting is so great there from both Daniel Craig, Jeffrey Wright, and Felix is a character that I love. And obviously there is that kind of thing, you know, within this universe, this mini universe, if you will. You know, I did get really attached to Felix. Missed him in some of the films, and then, you know, he's back and he does, like, it is quite sad, obviously, and you know, I do really love this Felix, but yeah, again, it's just a bit off in the way it's kind of put into the film. And regardless, though, you know, Felix coming to Bond with the mission. Logan Ash is another character who, you know, Billy Magnussen. You know, I really like this actor. You know, recently saw him in Game Night as well for the first time, and you know, it's a film I really liked, and he was hilarious in that film. You know, it's, again, you know, really great actors in this film. Just some of the character working just doesn't work. You know, just what they were asked to do. You know, the constant, you know, kind of smirks from some of the characters in this film. It doesn't really. It just comes across as strange, and you know, just doesn't. It takes me out of the film. But you know, some of the stuff here is quite interesting. Even with Felix and stuff. You know, with the interactions here, and seeing Logan Ash. You know, there is some comedy there with Bond as well. So. You know, that does elevate even those moments. But yes, overall, when we get to the Cuba sequence, this is when the film, as I say, is at its best. The style, the action, the music as well. Hans Zimmer, you know, one of my absolute favourite, you know, kind of composers, really all time. And again, you know, this is a good score. This is a good, you know, for the most part, the film is shot well. You know, it's not. Overall, the cinematography is not, you know, or the visuals, you know, are not some of my favourites, you know, in the Bond universe. But I do think there is a lot of merit here in the film, in the way it's shot, and generally, yeah, it's just very immersive, especially though in these moments, you know, nighttime, you know, in the Cuba sequence, you know, this is when the film is very good visually, and the score here is at its best. And generally as well in the first half, you know, and after the Cuba sequence, we do have a nice return to, you know, I guess the MI6 team, them seeing Bond, but we have, yeah, essentially Bond returning and learning different things, and so we as an audience, you know, the 007 status has temporarily been removed from Bond, so yeah, we have obviously Naomie being the current in these parts, 007, of course, and then we have a lot of attempts at comedy between Bond and Naomie, and you know, different characters as well, and it is, for the most part, it is quite funny, and you know, I think you know, the way in which as well, you know, Bond does eventually you know, get the status back, and you know, generally as well, I do really like the newcomers in this film. You know, Lashana Lynch is very good in this film, and I think the chemistry between you know, her and Daniel Craig is very strong. You know, I do, you know, I just find it to be you know, at times very charming. You know, and seeing Ben Whishaw again, you know. The scene, you know, in his house or his home, you know, is great, and just learning a bit more about even these side characters, and getting, you know, really nice, unique scenes that, you know, have not been in other Bond films, and yeah, it's a shame in that sense that, you know, we probably never see Ben Whishaw and you know all these different characters or actors playing these characters again, because they kind of trying to obviously close off this whole Daniel Craig Bond era. It's a real shame, because I got so attached to, you know, Ben Whishaw as Q from Skyfall, and you know, it's a shame that there's only a few films that these actors probably will be in, and then it will be a different set of actors, you know, for the next Bond films, however they're going to do that. But yes, I really like a lot of these scenes. Sometimes the comedy doesn't work, and it's a bit kind of, it takes me out of the film or the flow of the film. And you know, of course, it is really nice to see though different interactions. You know, I do really like as well, you know, when Bond does eventually get 007 status back. You know, that's quite an epic moment. You know, in that sense as well, and. Yeah, obviously, there's a lot of things, you know, throughout the film that I think could have been trimmed. You know, just because, you know, it does here and there. It starts to, you know, kind of it does drag a little bit. You know, even before the kind of final act. But you know, for the most part, I do enjoy a lot of the interactions. One of the interactions that, you know, is I'll give it this. It's hilarious, but it's really not good for me. Is Bond and Blofeld, what was going on there? You know, one of the bits as well, you know, one of the lines, you know, when Daniel Craig he says, it's either die brother or die Blofeld, die, and you know, in the cinema, I was just, I nearly, you know, burst into laughter there, you know, just for what was that? You know, it's just hilarious, you know, strange moment, you know, and Blofeld is even more. You know, I just, what is he doing? You know, sort of cuckoo, you know. It really, you know, if it's a comedy, then yes, it's quite funny. You know, a bit over the top, but quite funny. You know, for a Bond film that was following from Spectre, where, you know, I didn't, you know, enjoy really Blofeld in Spectre, but you know, in this one he's even worse, and you know, I just think the whole, he's meant to be menacing, you know, and his, you know, menace towards Madeline, you know, the threats and all this, and then, you know, Bond himself, you know, how can we really, or at least I can't really take it seriously at all, and you know that. But yeah, you know, it's definitely an unforgettable moment when, you know, line, Bond goes up to Blofeld there and you know, says that into his ear, and you know, it's really funny stuff. But yeah, another bizarre scene of Blofeld. So then we have, you know, throughout the rest of the film, a lot more Safin showing up, and you know, getting to the second half. This is when it really starts to kind of, you know, fall apart. One of the scenes, you know, the chase scenes with the cars, you know, across the rocky terrain there, confusing, quite bland visually, and you know, the way it's edited there with the action, and generally just, you know, that was when I was really thinking, I'm not as invested in this film. This is certainly not, you know, a Bond film that is living up to me for you know, for the hype. But we'll stick with it, and then it kind of, for the most part, gets worse and worse. We have some good lines from different characters, some nice Bond moments, you know, I guess, some quips, you know, and you know, it's what I like seeing Naomie and different characters, you know, in on the action with Bond. You know, we don't need every Bond film to be a bit more, you know, kind of solo. It's nice to as well see, you know, the team kind of working together. I know some people say it's kind of like the Mission Impossibles, but you know, it does work, you know, in Spectre, and it works in this at times as well. When we have different, you know, members of the team with Bond on the field, obviously, yeah, we have some one-liners as well from Naomie and from Bond. So it's quite, you know, cool to see that, and you know, I think the film does, you know, there is some weird moments tonally though with the violence in this one actually, you know, just for me, but. Yeah, that's fine. It's when we get to the last sort of 45 minutes where it really starts to kind of, you know, in the cinema as well, going backwards, you know, all that time ago, you know, I was thinking, oh no, what is, you know, being foreshadowed here? You know, I kind of knew what was going to happen, but I thought they can't do that. And that was before, you know, now I'm never surprised by what they're doing in different franchises, but you know, that was a kind of the last one where, you know, I had a little bit of hope that they wouldn't, you know, do this and that, but you know, obviously being foreshadowed that he would sacrifice himself in some way, and gradually, as we go for the final lengthy, the final act there, just, I was very, very, kind of nervous at that, and seeing it again, it's just really frustrating. Having seen the film twice now in total, it just, it's like every single option they had to make it even just, more realistic and more kind of more natural for the film. It just seems like they went, no, we're steering him towards that end event which has been circled on a page, whereas Bond has to die, and I just think, it really, I don't agree with Bond dying, and then I don't agree with the way it's done either. It's just very desperate, and just it takes away from the enjoyment. I don't want to come out of the cinema, completely deflated, with the state of a franchise as well that I've now got to wait many more years for another film, and it's just for a franchise that never needs Bond to die. It really is the one thing. So this is my least favourite Bond moment. Actually, the Bond death with the missiles coming in, of course, at the end there. We have obviously the aftermath as well, which I really hate. But the build up, and then especially the final bit with Bond, dying and just looking up, and just all the ways he could have got away. But regardless, as well, forget the logic. It's a film. It's a Bond film. It's cinema. So they could have done something that wasn't necessarily making sense. I mean, most films don't make sense. They don't need to. But they even ignored that, and they just thought, let's just have Bond dying. For some reason, I don't really care what the reason is. It just doesn't work for me. And as a Bond fan, growing up with Bond, it was a real gut punch there. And my least favourite Bond moment coming out of the cinema. I was so angry with this, and seeing it again, it's just like, yeah, okay, here we go. And it was even more baffling really seeing it again. But obviously the effect of I've already gone through the effect of it emotionally and stuff, and the frustration, but it's still there, I guess. But regardless, moving on from that, generally the final act, seeing Safin, and Bond's interactions there, and just Mathilde, obviously the daughter of Bond. Another thing that a lot of people picked up on was kind of a thing early on where Bond is thinking, is it his kid with Madeline, and it's just kind of a very one-sided, obviously it's not yours, don't be stupid kind of thing, and it's like, obviously we're meant to think, okay, and then it just comes back really out of nowhere that no, she is actually the kid of Bond. But yeah, it just kind of happens there, and it's just so confusing the first time I saw it, because I thought, at first, obviously she is Bond's kid, and then we're told that she's obviously not, so it's kind of this false build up to her being Bond's kid, but then for it to be slipped in really gradually, just in the final moments there, Safin is just very strange, and then he lets her go. They just didn't really get any of this stuff here. It's very strange. Safin, once again, doesn't go out without just being just such an irritating villain there. With Bond, the interactions. I just really wanting these scenes to end. As well, the whole nanobots, plot in this, the way it's used. There are similar plot elements in Bond in the past, but again, the way this is done, I think it was quite cool. The party, early on, in Cuba, that was really cool. But the rest of the film, the way it's used and explored, just isn't very interesting. And it's the whole kind of monologues at the end, from Safin, and all this, it just doesn't work. It really, really doesn't work for me. And just good riddance really to that villain there. And just then moving on, obviously, with the final moments with Madeline, Bond, Mathilde, Naomie. Again, it doesn't. It feels very off. Very forced for Bond to go off on his own and do this. And yeah, then we have obviously after Bond's death, we have an MI6 team kind of drinking over, salutes, Bond, drinking to Bond and all this. Even that, I just think it's scene after scene. It just really annoys me. It feels so off. Again, the mix and match kind of way this is done, it's really showed here. It feels like it's a very, very distant, separate scene. That in itself doesn't really feel very authentic, but again, doesn't mesh with what's been going on. The flow is all broken really for me in the final act. and of course what's happening I'm not a fan of. So there we go. Obviously I've said I'm not a fan of the final act and the ending, but yes, the ending lines as well. We have obviously Madeline telling Mathilde about Bond, and it's kind of creating this myth, this legend of Bond, but as a human in that sense, and someone they've got a personal attachment to, and her telling, she's going to tell the stories of James Bond. The way in which that's delivered there, and the driving off, and obviously the use of we have all the time in the world. It really annoys me when they use different things like that emotionally. Bond films and different films in general. That song, is very much tied to On Her Majesty's Secret Service. And to see it, in this film and hear, that song, and just wow, it really annoys me. And then that's the ending. That's the ending of it's definitely one of my least favorite, ending, shots as well. But certainly the actual event with Bond dying, that's my least favorite. So yes, we do, as I said, I've praised quite a few things of this. We have some very good action for the most part. Some really good chemistry and interactions between Bond and various different characters that are introduced, and also existing characters, like of course Madeline. I do prefer Madeline Spector in a sense, and then again I do appreciate some things in this with obviously Lea Seydoux' performance in this one. It's a bit more emotional and all this that they're going for. So both films I do enjoy this character. Overall, I think I'd take the Spectre one, though, because I enjoy just the simplicity of this, and there's so much in this that doesn't work later on in the film. I do think I'd probably take the Spectre, romance between these two characters. One of the rare occasions, obviously, where a Bond girl has, kind of followed into the next film. We have a kind of developing on the relationship. But yes, for the most part, the interactions, Ben Whishaw, Ray Fiennes, Naomie Harris, all these different actors, actresses are very, very good in this film. I think obviously Blofeld, we've gone over that. Not a fan of this character in this film. It's quite obviously hilarious, but it doesn't work for me. And yes, I think not much more to say really. No Time to Die is a very, very strange film. There's some really good elements, and generally it is well made in consistently in quite a few regards. The visuals, the scoring obviously. The editing is a mixed bag. It's very hard. It would have been very hard to edit around this, just because of the structure of the film. But even then, especially in the second half, the editing is very, very jarring. In the Cuba sequences, it's very, very good. It's a very nice flow. So it's again an up and down film in that sense. The performances, obviously, Daniel Craig. We'll quickly talk about this being the final Daniel Craig film. Bond film. Love Daniel Craig. What a legendary actor for me. I grew up, kind of watching different Bond films, and then, when I was around 10, seeing Casino Royale, and at first, it definitely wasn't a Bond film that I knew in my head that I loved in the way that I love. I loved it really since, let's think, maybe 15, 16 is when I really, kind of, started to say, if you were asked what your favourite Bond films, and I said, Casino Royale, actually at the time was, my favourite Bond film. But yes, certainly, that's when I really, kind of, the more I saw it, basically, I loved it more and more. But initially, I did love the film. I loved, a lot of Bond films. But it's very different. Perhaps, until I rewatched Casino Royale, my favourite was potentially, one of my favourites was GoldenEye, I guess, and then, as I became a teenager and started watching, I guess, Casino Royale more and more on DVD at that point. Yeah, I did, really truly loved that film, and obviously it's one of my absolute favourite films of all time now. Again, not that it's come from not liking it to that, but yes, Quantum of Solace I saw in the cinema. That's the first one I saw in the cinema, and I really hated that one at the time. It's not a bad film now, I don't think, but I do think it's still not one that I like. Mediocre for me. It was very confusing on all this. The Skyfall, though, when I saw that, Skyfall in the cinema, once again, that was one of the greatest experience I've ever had with a film in the cinema. And once again, Daniel Craig, got the time to shine, as a proper, Bond portrayal there. Quantum of Solace was over in a, like a bullet, we should say. But yes, Skyfall, was just such a great experience. Spectre has grown on me. Initially, I wasn't big on it. Now I am. So Daniel Craig, definitely among the better Bond, actors. I do prefer. I think the very, very best for me is Sean Connery. But Daniel Craig is the one that consistently brings that feeling back. In No Time to Die, the way Bond is done is very, very different. So it's not quite. I didn't really feel overall though it was quite Bond. Truly, truly Bond in this film. And Daniel Craig, gave a very commendable performance, but it's not quite enough, because some of the writing and stuff in this film with different characters, not just Bond, is not quite there for me, and doesn't really, I don't have that, epic feeling, the mythic, legendary portrayal of Bond is not here. It's a very different film, but obviously a salute to Daniel Craig as Bond, because he really did he give a great run of 5 films. Obviously, it could have been more within this how long it was. This time span. But I do I cherish Casino Royale, Skyfall, Spectre as well, and it was quite emotional seeing, obviously, knowing this is the final Daniel Craig Bond film, and who knows who will portray Bond next. No point speculating for me, really. It was. Whenever it's announced, that's when I'll look into it personally. But yes, Daniel Craig, certainly a hats off, because he was a great Bond actor, and I love this actor in general. But yeah, a great Bond, a legendary Bond, really, and very interesting when I heard about Casino Royale, and yeah, I was old enough to remember, the kind of time the primary I guess the first hand hearing of the outcry and all this, I guess not just looking online hearing about this, but yes, actually hearing in the papers and all this, the kind of dismay at Daniel Craig going to play Bond, but in Casino Royale, wow, he really, for me at least, he delivered, and one of the very, very best Bond performances in that film, actually for me, and Skyfall, great Bond actor, and overall, this film, again, I have some things to really praise about this film, but there's some things that really do not work. Obviously, aspects, especially later on, that I do hate, and I think we'll wrap up. Overall, taking everything into account, I have to give this a 70%. Dead on good there. Because of the so much in it, especially the final act, that really annoys me so much. It kind of nears to the average, but I do think overall it's a good film, because I have a lot of fun with the first half, and overall, it's a film that has some very good moments, and I think it's a good film. I have to say that, and there's definitely some films recently in franchises that have disappointed me, and disappointed me more than this as an overall film. Obviously not, by the outcome of this. That's just my least favourite Bond moment and all this. I've gone over that, but overall, I do think this is a solid film. Overall, and yeah, I just think it's not one of my favourite Bond films at all. It really isn't. Will I rewatch this over the years too much? No. I definitely will rewatch it some down the line. Perhaps showing different people. Obviously, I've got it for the collection. Big Bond fan here, massive fan. But I don't think it won't be one that I'll go back to. Like I've been doing with even Thunderball and all these ones, Doctor No, over the years recently, and GoldenEye, Casino Royale. Again, that's not one I actually go back to in very recent years as much, because it's the one I want to build up more emotionally and stuff. you know, just you know, Goldfinger as well. All these are ones that I can just watch all the time, and you know, for comfort, for fun, and to be blown away cinematically. This is not that film, but let's leave it on a positive note. You know, it's a solid film, and you know, it's not one of my favourites, but I do commend it, and yeah, it's fine. It's a good film for me. You know, so much I have, you know, negatives to say about the film, but let's just say it's a good film. I like the film, and you know, I look forward to the next Bond film, and obviously, yes, the final Daniel Craig. I guess in some ways, you know, I should cherish this Bond film. So yes, there we have it. You know, my thoughts on No Time to Die. Overall, of course, 2 years on, just after that, just after 2 years on, of course. What do you think of this film? It'd be very, very fascinating to hear. Obviously, it's a very divisive film, you know, and yeah, it'd be very interesting to hear your thoughts in the comments. Yes, you know, certainly from this, now that I've reviewed No Time to Die, and I've been watching over the last few months, actually been watching, I watched all of the Connerys pretty much, other than only twice, because I saw that the previous year, 2022, later on in that year again. But yes, Dr. No from Much Rather Love, Goldfinger, Thunderball, and obviously on Her Majesty's Secret Service as well. You know, I saw that again, Lazenby. Wow, you know, just so you know, I've been watching a lot of the Bond films. There's a few more I want to watch again very soon, just to get that final, you know, ordering of the ranking. But then the ranking will come. So obviously this year, no doubt, and yeah, it's better to wait, you know, a long period in between the two rankings. Wow, it's been so long though since I've actually done that ranking. It's not 6 years, but it's, you know, kind of 5.5. I'm pretty sure. Actually, not quite that. But yes, it feels like a lifetime ago. And that was on the first year of this channel, which in itself feels like a lifetime ago. And it, you know, it's many years ago. But then again, it was only, you know, just 5-6 years. So that's kind of positive to think on, actually. You know, it has felt like a long, you know, long time, and it is, but it's not as long as, I guess, you know, yeah, it's very interesting. But yes, the Bond ranking will finally come again, and there's quite a few, you know, films that I've moved around. Nothing too drastic, I wouldn't say. And of course, we've got No Time to Die now to put into the ranking. So we'll look forward to doing that. All 25 main official Bond films will be in that ranking. So yes, I look forward to that. And what do you think of this film? Discuss Bond if you want in the comments, and discuss this film. So yes, that's my thoughts on No Time to Die, 2 years on, and yes, what do you think? It'd be great to hear. It'd be great to discuss, and for now, we'll leave it there. No Time to Die from 2021, the final Daniel Craig Bond film, and that is my personal thoughts on this film. So yes, as always, take care, and thanks for watching.